Good morning. Good morning. Turn to someone and tell them, I'm here for a divine appointment. Tell them I'm here for a divine purpose. And I am on point. I am on purpose. And so it is. Yes. Can you feel that? Yes. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we are here by divine appointment, number one, and that we're here for a divine purpose. Because sometimes life can be a bit extra, right? We say sometimes people are a little extra, and we don't ever want to be those. Sometimes we are. But life can sometimes be a little extra, a little more than we bargained for. But that's why it's important to really understand that you must remember who you are and whose you are. Remember that there's a purpose to your being here at this time, on this planet, in this place, right? Because nothing is done by mistake in the realm of spirit. And so we're here not as a mistake, but we've been called to this moment, to this purpose and time. We've been called to be here. And sometimes it just takes a little remembrance of that. So I'm glad that you all remembered that and you're here this morning. I thank you for being here. I thank you so much. It is Happy Cinco de Mayo Day, by the way. I heard you mention that, Renee. I was laughing. I said, oh, Cinco de Mayo, Sunday, May 5th. Huh? Or as one of my students call it, the salty mayo. The salty mayo. The salty mayo. Well, you know, Cinco de Mayo is not necessarily a religious or a spiritual holiday. But if you know anything about me, you know I'm going to find a spiritual lesson in anything and everything, right? I can find a spiritual lesson in everything and anything. So I really didn't know much about Cinco de Mayo other than that it had something to do with Mexico and some kind of battle or whatever. So I said, well, why don't you go look it up and see what it's about? Because you know how we folks do. We like to commercialize everything. So none of us really know exactly what it is, but we know it's margaritas, right? You go get some margaritas, have some salsa, some chips and some things, and we're like, hey, I'm celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Because if, you know, this culture is so commercialized that if we can make a buck off of anything, we're going to make everything. Somebody who's not of the Christian faith was asking, well, what does the Easter Bunny represent? And what is, you know, Santa Claus? I said, these opportunities for people to make money. Nothing really to do with the holiday, but, you know, so we like to do this. So I knew very little about Cinco de Mayo. So I said, well, let me look it up, at least see what it is all about. And apparently, it is about celebrating the Mexican army's victory over the French army. And what makes it an event to celebrate is because the Mexican army, when they were in battle on that day, had only about 2,000 soldiers. And the French army had about 6,000 soldiers. So it was almost, you know, 3 times as much as the Mexican army. But on that day, they were able to defeat the French army. Now, no matter that a year later, the French army came back with an even bigger army and indeed did invade Mexico, and Mexico City fell. But on May 5th, 1862, they were victorious. On May 5th, 1862, they were victorious against all odds, right? 3-1. 3-1, and yet they were able to defeat that larger army. And as I was reading about the battle, the writer said this. He said that all they had was a grain of hope. And I thought, sometimes that's all you need is a grain of hope, right? But the writer was like, all they had was a grain of hope. But apparently, on May 5th, that grain of hope was all they needed. And it did a mighty, mighty work. And so I began to think about what is a grain of hope. And it made me think, of course, of a grain of what? Of a mustard seed. So let's see what it says. And we know it, but let's read it. It says this in Mark chapter 4, verses 30 to 32. Let me go to Mark. That's my other reading. And it says, again he said, what shall we say the kingdom of God is like? He's teaching a parable here. What shall we say the kingdom of God is like, or what parable shall we use to describe it? It is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds on earth. Yet, when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants, with such big branches that the birds can perch in its shade. Now, there's a lot that is contained in this one little verse here about the mustard seed. And when I think about it, what it tells me is, first off, that God really doesn't need much from us, except a little bit of our attention, a little bit of our faith, a little bit of our hope. And with that little bit that we can offer, God can produce an abundance of good, an abundance of blessing, right? A harvest that is really great from what little we can offer. Now, we've all had those times in our lives and those periods in our lives where we have felt that we didn't have much to give, right? Like, I don't have much to give up. Or maybe we felt, I'm just at my wit's end. I don't have much more. Or my back is against the wall. I'm not sure how much more I can do or what I can hold on to. But what this parable says to us is that that's okay if you don't think you have much to give, because it's not required. He's not asking for a whole bunch. It's okay if you don't have much to give. But if you can just muster up some faith the size of a mustard seed, then that just might be enough. And I began to think, well, what if you don't have faith even the size of a mustard seed? Well, if you don't have faith the size of a mustard seed, can you at least have, or do you at least have a grain of hope? Do you have a grain of hope? Because a grain is all that you need. Now, there is something that you have to do, even with your grain of hope. There is something you have to do. You have to plant it. Because it said that the mustard seed was what? The smallest seed. But yet when it is what? When it is planted, it grows into the largest garden plant that there is, with huge branches, big enough so that the birds can come in the shade. So there must be something to this planting in order to reap a harvest, in order for growth to take place. Now, if we're honest, we'd have to admit that sometimes we want the benefit of the harvest without planting any seeds, right? Yeah, it's true, because we have to own that. Sometimes I just want the benefit of the harvest. I don't necessarily want to have to do the work to plant the seed, but I'm expecting the good to come to me. Even Jesus said, look, the fields are already ripe for harvest, meaning God's good is already available. He said, but the laborers are few. The good that we are seeking is everywhere present in the ethers and the substance of God, yet we might not want to do the work to draw it forth. But it's here, right? Now, granted, there are times when it is possible for us to yield a harvest without doing the work. That's called grace, right? And we all live under grace, and we want to experience the grace of God in our lives. And thank God that the grace of God is always working as well. Yet, we have been told that we are co-creators. And when you just sit back and rely upon what grace is going to save me, right? I don't have to do nothing because grace is going to come my way. You remember the story that when the flood and the boats and the God said, well, I'm waiting on God. Yes, grace is there. But our lives work better when we co-create. Our lives work better when we put ourselves in the mix, and it's been provided for us when we simply also do what is necessary so that we can reap the harvest, so that we're never left feeling like we can't do anything in life. That's the blessing. So we work best when we are a co-creator with God. So we have to plant this seed. We plant the seed into the ground of what? Of consciousness, into the soil of our minds, into the soil of our hearts and our presence. We plant that ground. Now, what I'm thinking is that sometimes we've got to be grounded in this truth. You know, he gives another parable where he talks about the seed, and some seeds are thrown by the wayside, and they don't grow because they don't have good roots, and they don't grow, and the sun comes and burns up the seeds. And sometimes people plant it in a little shallow earth, not much, they don't water, they don't do anything, and then what? It withers away because you still didn't do nothing with it. But he said, but then that seed that goes into the rich soil and is tended to and watered and fertilized, that's the seed that grows into the bounty of blessings. So we have in our consciousness a work to do, and we've got to be grounded in it. See, one or two prayers that you may pray every now and then ain't gonna cut it. Because what happens is you rely, when you're in trouble, you say, oh, let me say a prayer. Let me see, what can I remember? God, help me do. That's the seed by the side of the road. Or maybe if you remember the affirmation of prayer, you might be the one that's in shallow ground. See? But it's not going to serve you well when you really, really need it. When you're grounded, you got to be grounded so that you have roots in this truth. So that when the winds blow and the rains come and stuff happens and you start to sway, you're not bowled over. You know, you might bend because life can bend you sometimes, but you won't break because you've got deep roots. You know the truth, and you can pull something up and rely upon it. And I have to do that just like everybody else. I have to recognize when I'm down and I'm feeling, oh my goodness, I have to dig deep so I can hold on to something that can pull me back up, right? Something that gives me what? Hope. That I can make it through another day or through this experience, that I can somehow continue on my journey and my path, no matter how difficult and how challenging. So I've got to make sure that my ground and my roots are deep. That I've got my feet planted on what? Solid ground of truth that I understand that I can use. Not just by a surface, but something that I own, something that is a part of my being. Something that when I'm down and out, the truth comes bubbling up and, oh yes, I remember. Let me speak my truth. Let me turn to the light. Because that's what plants do, right? They all seek that light no matter what. You can bury it under the ground. It's going to seek the light. And that's what we do when we understand the truth. We can seek that light, and it pulls us up and helps us to continue to grow and to unfold through, to go through and what? Grow through. To go to and grow through. And so we plant this seed in our consciousness, because this is the thing. God is at the ready. God is ready to bless you. God is ready to move you out of your predicament and out of your situation. God is ready to enlarge your territory. The field is already ripe for harvest. The seeds have already been planted for us, even within us. But we've got to what? Nurture it, right? In consciousness. And God is ready to do that. So what is called for is that we then have to make sure that we are doing our work. we have to what? Plant the grain of hope, or maybe the mustard seed of faith. Because we'll talk a little bit, there's a little difference between the two. The grain of hope and the mustard seed of faith. But for now, there are a number of ways we can plant this grain, whether it's the grain of hope or grain of the mustard seed. And maybe you're at a place where all you can do is surrender to God. Been there too. You know what I mean? Where I just didn't have too much anything but to let go. You know what, God, here. That's all I can do. But that is a powerful thing. See, that's a powerful word. So you might be only able to surrender to God. But that's okay, because that's something. You're doing something. And in that surrendering, you are planting your grain of hope simply by letting go. You're planting a grain of hope simply by letting go, with the hope that somehow God will do whatever it is that is needed for you in this situation at this time to bring you to a place of wholeness. Sometimes that's all we have. Can you bring me to a place of wholeness? But you have to keep your attention on God. You've got to water the ground. That's your work. Consciousness, daily, thinking of God, surrendering to God, opening up to God. We've got to be accountable and recognize the work might be going on even when we can't see that it is happening. Because when a seed is planted, the work is happening, but you won't always what? You don't always see it. But let me continue to water. Let me continue to pray daily, to meditate, to speak the truth. I can't see anything happening yet. But I'm going to hold on that it is happening because I'm doing my work. I'm being responsible. I might not be able to see it at that point. Now, don't go digging up the seeds because, that's not how it works. You don't have to worry about if it's growing. It is growing. Your task is to do what? To work with watering, fertilizing, planting, holding on to the truth. God will do the work. It's happening. And you have to be steadfast. I hold the prayer for this ministry. I've been holding it for a long time. Has it totally manifested like I am holding in my consciousness? No, not yet. But should I give up? No, not yet. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to hold on. I'm going to water it with my vision. I'm going to water it with my hope. I'm going to water it with my faith. I'm going to speak it into being. The timing of it is not mine. I'm going to do my part. But I began to think, is there a difference between hope and faith? Because sometimes faith seems so official. Seems very spiritual, right? It's like, wow, faith, yeah. So deep. And sometimes we might feel, well, I just don't have enough faith right now. I can't muster up that faith. I don't have faith to do what I'm supposed to do. And that's okay. So the question then I would like to ask is, well, can you get to hope? Maybe you don't have faith, you feel, but can you get to hope? Because hope, having a little hope sounds easier, doesn't it? Because everybody can hope. Everybody can hope. And I looked at the definition of hope from Webster. Webster says this about hope. He says, it is to cherish a desire with expectations of fulfillment. Or hope is to long for with expectation of attainment. Or it could be to expect with desire, expectation of fulfillment of or success. Now, I can do that, right? Because who here has not longed for something to come about in your life? Who here has not desired for something? That's it. We can long for something, and we can, all right, I can do that, right? I might not be quite up to having complete faith, but I certainly can have some hope. I can have some hope. Now, if you don't have the faith, my thing is, okay, fine, then start with hope. That's a desire for an expectation of fulfillment. That's easy for us to do. So start with that, having an expectation or a desire, because you can do that if nothing else. Now, while it may seem that hope might be like a layman's version of faith or a cheaper version of faith, do not underestimate the power of hope. It is still a powerful thing, and it can still lead you to the presence of God. Hope can still get you to the power of God at work. Listen to what it says in Psalms 63, verses 5 through 8. And I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation, the King James, and the Message, because sometimes I like to hear it from all these different perspectives. And this is what it says here. Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken. My victory and honor come from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. O my people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge. And the King James Version puts it this way. My soul, wait silently for God alone, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength, and my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. And from the Message, it says this. God, the one and only, I'll wait as long as he says. Everything I hope comes from him, so why not? He's solid rock under my feet, breathing room for my soul, an impregnable castle. I'm set for life. My help and glory are in God. Granite, strength, and safe harbor, God. So trust him absolutely, people. Lay your lives on the line for him. God is a safe place to be. I like that. God is a safe place to be. So this is very powerful, because what that says, if you don't have faith, okay, at least have some hope. Hope in God. Jesus said to have faith in God, but if you can't get there, have some hope in God, because it's a safe place to be. You got to plant yourself in that presence and power of God within you. And so if you can't, get out of yourself and do much, just rest in that presence. Hope in that faith of God, the presence of God to do the work. Now, if you're able to take a little action, then the next thing you might do to help plant this grain of hope is to actually then take some steps or some actions, no matter how small they may be. Sometimes I can't take a big leap of faith, but I could take a small baby step, right? I can do one small thing. I can't do the whole thing, but I can do what? A small thing. And what this is that as long as I'm moving in the direction of God, then everything, in the right direction, then everything will unfold and plan as it should. Now, sometimes what happens is because we can't see the length of the road before us, we can't see the end of the path, we can't see the bends and the turns, that we get paralyzed and not even being able to take a step. And this is what we have to say to ourselves. You don't have to see the whole end of the road. You just have to be willing to take the next step. The Bible says, lean not unto your own understanding, but in all of your ways acknowledge him, and he'll do what? He'll direct your path. You don't need to see all the way down the road, because sometimes we can't see all the way down the road. But see what your next step is. Be willing to move with the Spirit, because the objective is to keep moving. And this is the thing we have to know. God will always give us the next step. You can see right now what is the next step for you. You don't have to worry about you don't see the whole picture. It may not be for you to see. You just need to say, what is my next step? And you can ask myself, what do I need to do now? See, we get so far ahead of ourselves, all up in the weeds. What's the next step? And even if you have, then that doesn't mean you don't have plans and you don't have goals and you don't have a purpose and you don't have a vision. Do that, have that. But the direction of your path is for you to take the next step. Because even if you have all those goals and the visions of where you want to go, it begins with what? Single step. And we're going to get all hung up if we're trying to walk and you take the next step. That's your responsibility. That is your job. God is directing the path because you don't know the path that your life is going to take. We have hope for our journey, and we trust the process, and we trust that God is going to be leading us to what? To good. We know that. But the actual point of how to get there, let God direct that step by step, moment by moment, right? Every hour I need thee. Every moment I just need to take the next step because God is present in this moment here. And that is a grain of hope that we can plant in our lives. That is our task. And if we don't have faith, then start with hope, because hope will lead to faith, and faith will lead to assurance. And when you have that, then all is well. Right? All is well. Again, he said, what shall we say the kingdom of God is like? Or what parable shall we use to describe it? It is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds on earth. Yet, when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants, with such big branches that the birds can perch in its shade. What are you desiring? What are you longing for? What are you hoping for? Expect good. Expect God. If you plant that seed in your consciousness, your harvest will be bountiful. Blessings. Blessings. Blessings.